The seller did not report or disclose any structural defects. Lo and behold, the house appears to be essentially splitting in two. There's an inch-wide crack in the floor. The roof is buckling in the same spot. Subflooring needs to be replaced. The doors don't latch. The floors aren't level. The heat pump just died. Not related, but this person threw that in there. The real estate agent did not recommend a home inspection. They say the house needs about $30,000 in repair to keep it from falling down. So now the question is, do you repair it? Do you sell it as is? Yo! How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt. That is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about some major layoffs that are happening in the tech industry and how that is unfortunately going to affect the real estate market. We're going to be talking about how to avoid buyer's remorse. These buyers, they're doing everything possible to win these properties, including waiving inspections and also taking for granted information provided by the sellers, which may or may not be accurate. And then what happens, Shawn, once you move into a property, things start breaking. So we're going to be talking about how to avoid buyer's remorse, and then we're going to finish it off with the NAR, National Association of Realtors, raising the membership dues to all members of the association, if that's a good thing, if that's a bad thing, and what we're actually getting out of that raise in dues. So let's start off with kind of some major, I would say, somewhat startling news. This has started to become prevalent in the tech industry, among other industries. And we've covered some companies like Better Mortgage, which has been very public in terrible ways to basically like how not to fire people, doing it over Zoom. And lo and behold, Carvana, this comes to us from Engadget as well as many other sources. Carvana has laid off 2,500 employees, many of them over Zoom, essentially 12% of the company's workforce. And it's not necessarily, Carvana lays off workforce and then the housing market goes down. It's more so the bigger picture. And there's an article from CNBC as well that is entitled "Tech is Hitting the Brakes on Hiring Even as Other Industries Keep Adding Up." And in the article, it details companies like Meta, which is pausing their hiring and scaling down recruiting efforts. Amazon CFO has said that warehouses have become overstaffed. Uber's CEO has said that treat hiring as a privilege and be deliberate about headcount. If that's not corporate speak for layoffs incoming, I don't know what will. And finally, Robinhood said that it's recently cut about 9% of its full-time employees, Shawn. So at what point is the tech surge, if you will, going to stop, and how is that going to affect the real estate market? Because tech has been hot for a really long time, and I'm not big into stocks. I have stocks, I have index funds, but if you looked at my stock portfolio, a lot of tech, a lot of Google, a lot of Meta, a lot of insert stock company. And every now and then I'll go golfing with guys and they're like, "Oh, you got to get into oil, or you got to get into gold, like you got to get into these." And I'm like, gold's not the future. So tech's been hot for a while, but that may be cooling off.
It's so hard to tell. How I'll start this out is, listen, we went through 2 years of the craziest thing that we've ever seen. It changed how we do business, how we buy products, how we do everything. And naturally, there are going to be surges in all of these companies because our lives changed so drastically. Think about, we worked from home. All right, we needed tech. We needed a lot of different technologies to be able to work from home during that pandemic. Amazon needed to deliver packages all day long, every day, because we were all staying at home. Now things are starting to change a little bit where we're coming out of that pandemic. We're starting to see people go back to work in a normal fashion, not as much as we did before, but it's starting to happen. And naturally that's going to cause layoffs because these companies hired so many people during that time frame to keep up with the demand. And so is that going to foreshadow what's going to happen into the real estate market? I don't know. It's really hard, but it could be saying, hey, this inflation is really affecting us, right? Inflation is the key to everything. And we are seeing how that particular inflation is causing interest rates to go up, causing maybe the layoffs, causing everything to be more expensive. And yes, that will have a direct effect on the real estate market. We're already starting to see it. And I'm talking to people, agents in different areas. Particularly, I just talked to somebody up in New Hampshire, an agent up in New Hampshire. And they said, you know what, we're starting to see the market cool. We're not seeing, what she said was, we were never like you guys down in the big cities where we saw multiple contracts all the time, where we were kind of used to it. And we were saying these people are going to have to get used to a different market. She said she was never used to it. And then all of a sudden they had to get used to it. And now it's not happening anymore. And so that's where we always say it starts. It starts at the edge of the circle, and then it starts coming in. And the last to be affected, or the first to be affected, is usually the big city, right? So now they're starting to see it, and that'll start trailing off throughout the United States. So I think the real estate market is cooling, just as every other aspect of our lives are cooling. And it needed to happen. We're just seeing such a huge bubble in prices, bubble in everything, that I think it's healthy to stop, to pull that back, right? What I don't like is such a quick push in these interest rates. You know, they've just happened so quickly. Like we were talking earlier this year that we were thinking, oh, it'll be like 1% over a year. It's like doubled in 5 months, you know? And so I guess it needed to happen because of inflation and just to keep checks and balances going, but it's definitely going to affect our markets.
I was listening to a podcast recently, a really good real estate podcast. I don't want to name it because what I may say will sound like a joke, but I wanted to start from the beginning of their podcast, which was like in 2021. And so everyone was doing like their 2022 predictions. And they're like, yeah, maybe interest rates will hit like 4.5 by the end of 2022. And it's like, yeah, maybe they'll hit 7 by the end of 22 at this point. Two other companies I wanted to mention in this article. So Peloton is going to reduce its corporate workforce by about 20%. And then Cameo, the celebrity video shout out app. Have you ever used Cameo before?
That was cool.
You could get some of your 1980s like grunge bands, like drummers. Like when I texted you about Kodak Black being at the Caps game, you're like, I have no idea who that is. And I'm like thinking to myself, yeah, he's not a 1980s like grunge band musician. But Cameo is gonna get rid of. It's terrible that we have to use such analytical approaches to like people losing their job. But Cameo is going to announce a round of layoffs, accounting to about a quarter of its staff. So definitely big like pandemic companies like Cameo, Peloton, Zoom, companies like that. Zillow is down so big.
Oh my God.
I wonder how Kurt's feeling about that one. But this is like a microcosm. It's like, is inflation causing the layoffs, or are the CEOs or the boards being like, okay, this is happening, we need to start laying people off to get ready for what's going to happen in the next 6 to 18 months? Yeah,
I mean, like I was saying, those businesses have thrived during the pandemic. Now, Peloton for sure, right? They were just running with the craze because everybody was living at home. They were able to exercise whenever they could. They were taking these classes. It was great. Now it's like, hey, we're back to reality. We're back to life. We got to pull back. And it's no fault of Peloton. I mean, they raked in a lot of money during that time frame, and they took advantage of that, right? But everything changes. And so you have to be able to rebound. And the business are being smart now by doing this, by pulling back. I guess the question is, how is this affecting the real estate market? And we've said, the rising interest rates are definitely stopping that. But there is still a lack of inventory.
In Northern Virginia, like Amazon is still hiring. You know, Amazon, it's not like Amazon's going to stop. Like they promised 25,000 jobs, and I think they're well on their way, almost even halfway there. And Boeing announced their headquarters is going to be in Amazon. I don't think that's going to bring a lot of Boeing jobs, but that may bring like ancillary security jobs.
And that's what I always tell people. I'm like, be careful on where you purchase, especially when prices are going like crazy like they are. When they're going crazy in smaller towns, you've seen it pop, and you're going to see it deflate quicker, right? Whereas when you have the security of the Washington, D.C. area, and you've got Amazon, you've got Boeing, you've got the federal government, we have stability here that supports it. New York, same kind of thing. But when you have these small, cities that have seen such a rise in their prices, but you don't have that security, it's going to be similar to Peloton. It's going to be similar to these other industries. The real estate industry, I think, will pull back in those areas first, and you're going to see a lot of hurting people, and that could lead to the foreclosure side.
So the biggest leap of all is what I was going to get to is like, are we going to see, and hang with me here, layoffs to people not being able to pay their mortgages, to short sales and foreclosures in this area with the amount of government workers, with the amount of stable jobs? It doesn't strike me as an area where that could happen. But if we're seeing huge amounts of tech layoffs that may bleed into consultancy layoffs or other sort of industries similar to the tech industry, or helps out the tech industry, where people could be laid off possibly.
Yeah, we're just in such a weird position of our history, of our lives, right? It's such a weird thing that happened to us. And now we're trying to, what is normal, right? We're trying to get back to what is normal. And that's another thing that Muriel Bowser, right, the mayor of DC, is saying, like, we need more patrons to our restaurants. We are hurting our patrons. That is all down because the government isn't churning like it was, right? It's not, the people aren't going to these huge buildings in DC. And so that lunch hour kind of pop that they used to have isn't there anymore. And so will it ever get back to that? That's the question. And so we've changed so many things. How is it going to go back to a normal? Is it ever going to go back to a normal? And how does that affect the real estate market? It's crazy. And so we really don't know, but we're seeing some ebbs and flows, and we just got to get used to it.
I will say the past 2 times that I've gotten District Taco for lunch, which was today and yesterday, past 2 times, I do on the app because you get the rewards and it's right there, and they have the to-go. There's a line. There's a line of people.
That's good.
Blue dress shirts, nice blouses, people in there. I'm making eye contact with them as I pick my food up, and they're waiting in line.
Well, that's a good example. Matt lives in Roslyn, and Roslyn is just outside the district. And Roslyn has always been kind of the business district of Arlington. Everybody comes in here during the day to work, and then they leave at night. So if he's starting to see more traffic in the restaurants that he lives and goes to every single day, that means, hey, things are starting to churn again, which refreshing. Is a good sign.
It's a good sign. It's very refreshing. All right, well, let's move on to our second topic. This comes to us from slate.com, kind of like a op-ed letter to the editor. I really messed up my first real estate purchase. I'm furious. There's a sucker born every minute, Shawn, and it turns out I am one of them, reads the article. So essentially what happened was that this buyer purchased a house, put 20% down. The seller did not report or disclose any structural defects. Lo and behold, the house appears to be essentially splitting in two. There's an inch-wide crack in the floor. The roof is buckling in the same spot. Subflooring needs to be replaced. The doors don't latch. The floors aren't level. The heat pump just died. Not related, but this person threw that in there. The real estate agent did not recommend a home inspection. They say the house needs about $30,000 in repair to keep it from falling down. So now the question is, do you repair it? Do you sell it as is? Do you try to make the most of it? And I guess to give context, they paid $180,000 for it. So when the house needs $30,000 worth of work and the house itself is $180,000, you're in a tough position because now, as this buyer has said in this little article here, if they do try to sell, they're going to have to disclose everything that they know that's wrong with it. And so, what sort of buyer would buy a house that has structural impacts, so now, defects? So now the buyer's thinking, okay, well, if it had structural defects now, it had it, a month ago when I bought the place, like, why didn't the seller disclose it? Like, can I go after the seller? And the person who writes this column, who is clearly not a lawyer, basically says that you need to have a burden of proof. And I actually did have a client recently in Falls Church, bought a single family house, and then when they moved in, they noticed that water started to pool in like a corner of the basement, kind of near the stairs. And they're like, what the heck? The seller never disclosed it. And in Virginia, sellers have to disclose material defects of the property. But if there's not like a flood happening, or if the property's not like literally on fire, Virginia is a buyer beware state. So you're kind of, SOL'd. So it's very difficult to have that burden of proof unless the buyer can prove like, hey, here's the area where clearly something has been masked or covered up and they're trying to deceive the purchaser. So Shawn, what are your thoughts on the whole waiving of the inspection? Something came up that clearly needed to be disclosed, and options and ramifications from there.
Yeah, first of all, you got to blame yourself at some point, right? You didn't do the inspection. You can blame everybody, but at the last point, you made the choice not to do one.
Can I just stop you there?
Yep.
They say my real estate agent did not recommend a home inspection.
Okay.
We don't know if there's multiple offers. We don't know the situation. Why don't you take over? Like, when do you not recommend a home inspection?
I always recommend a home inspection.
Okay.
So unless it's a condo, right? If it's a condo, and I'm not saying I don't recommend it. With a condo, it's a little bit different because you're looking at an HVAC system. That's going to be your biggest thing. With single family homes or townhouses, I'm always going to say you should probably do one, right? Because there are so many more things that could go wrong. Even if it is a multiple offer situation, you can still do a home inspection. You can get in there early and do a pre-inspection, and that way you know what's wrong with the house prior to writing on it. I know that this market has been crazy, and I know that there might not have been time enough to do that home inspection. I've definitely had people in the past waive their home inspections and not even do one in those circumstances, but we also went kind of through it a little heavy and made sure that the systems and stuff were working. So it's tough. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm perfect and in knowing that something's going to be wrong, but I'm always going to say, listen, if you want to write on this property and you want to win, you're probably going to have to waive your home inspection in these scenarios. If you're not going to do a pre-inspection, then it's on you, right? I suggest getting in there, doing a home inspection. And there's cheaper options, quick options you can do. You can do a home inspection in an hour. And our inspectors, you can do what's called a pick 3 or pick 4, right? It costs you a very little money, a few $100s to run through there and say, I want you to look at the foundation, the roof, the HVAC system, and certain plumbing things. Those are your 4 things. That's going to cost you half as much as a full report. You're not going to get a report, but you can walk through there and say, oh, this is what's wrong with it. They could have probably found these problems for you in that instance. Now, I don't know what the particular situation was with this house, with the multiple offer situation or whatever. Could the seller have known about these things? Yes. The burden of proof is tough. How can you prove that they actually knew that? If they've called some people and got some quotes for this stuff, definitely, right? If you can find that stuff out. If it's just blatant in your face, they should have known about it. But didn't you walk through there as well? And, it really depends on what they're finding. Right?
So here's one where there could have been some sort of burden of proof. This comes to us from NBC Connecticut, entitled "Looking to Buy a Home, Don't Have Real Estate Regret." A couple was purchasing a Connecticut house and they received a septic inspection that stated that the septic was 3 years old. It was a 3-year-old septic system. They go to have a 4th of July party with guests that are coming over to the house, a couple months after they move in, I believe. And there's septic spewing into the basement.
That sucks.
And, the entire septic system needs to be replaced. $17,000 septic replacement. Now, they had a report, and it could say that it was all good, but well, someone could fabricate anything, but maybe at that point you call the septic company and say, hey, did you really come out here on these dates? Did you really think it was all good? And it could have been a bad septic company, or something could have happened in that short time period between inspection and the issue with the septic spewing into the basement. And it looks like the listing agents or someone conveyed to them, hey, it's only 3 years old. Hey, we got an inspection. You don't need to, essentially nudging them in that direction. And so they held off on doing an inspection for that reason. So that could be, a possibility where you may have some sort of ground to stand on.
Absolutely. If somebody's telling you something that is not true, then you have the leg. And if you've got emails and everything else to that fact, then you can go after them. And that's just a blatant misrepresentation. And that's where things go wrong, and people could be sued.
We're almost at the point where it's like very hard to believe sellers sometimes with what they disclose.
Right.
It's almost like, okay, I'm gonna take this information, but I want to independently verify it.
Right.
Whether it's like a survey or an inspection or something of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, homes nowadays, there's homes built in the 30s. There's going to be things wrong with them. And another thing is heavy rains, right? We don't realize how these rains are going to affect the property until it actually happens. And the seller might actually know of these things, right? And it can happen. And thankfully, maybe it doesn't get into the house or whatever. But it's really hard to figure out. Recently, we've had a lot more rain, I believe, in the last few years. And so things change. I don't know. One thing I wanted to go back on was that it doesn't matter if you're buying a home for the first time, you're buying a brand new construction home, you're renovating your home, you're buying a renovation. Things are going to go wrong, inevitably. I mean, it's going to happen. And there's plenty of times where clients have called me, to replace my HVAC system. Oh, we're getting water in the basement. Things happen. And this is reality of purchasing a property. And use me as an example. I mean, I bought a renovated house a year and a half ago. There's problems, there's things that come up. My floors shrink in the winter. It drives me crazy. They're brand new hardwood floors and they shrink. They come back in the summer with the humidity. But does it look good in the winter? No, I hate it. It drives me crazy. I had a call this morning, friend of mine. Hey, Shawn, do you know an inspector? Sure. What's going on? Oh, we just did this renovation to our property. A friend that owned a house, they popped it up. They put this big renovation on. And they're like, do you know an inspector? They've already moved back in. Sure, send them over. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, we've got leaks. We've got flooding. This is a brand new project, right? So it's not just you that purchases the home without a home inspection. It's a lot of people that is kind of, this stuff happens is what I'm trying to say. And you're not alone, right? But the fact that you didn't do a home inspection, as a real estate agent, we all have to say, listen, you should do a home inspection. That's up to you. If you want to, you should sign this document that says, I'm refusing a home inspection. And that pulls the liability off as us as agents. Because, we all get wrapped up in it. I want you to win. I want you to win this. How do you win it? You got to waive your home inspection. All right. Well, I'm going to do what you tell me to do to win it. And then we're stuck, right?
Yeah.
So it sucks.
Well, I'm attending a home inspection on Saturday for
there you go.
My client who's purchasing a condo. So
I showed a house this morning, right? I said, she's like, do you think they'll get multiple contracts? Probably. All right. Well, should we do a home inspection? Yes. You should do a home inspection. Let's do it. Let's schedule it for Monday. And if you like it, then we're going to write it on
Get that
on
pre-inspection
Tuesday. Pre-inspection is key. Start doing them if you're not.
Well, it's tough. It's tough to win a multiple offer scenario with a home inspection contingency, and it's tough to pay $400 a pop every single time.
Yeah.
But it's also tough to pay $17,000 for an entire new septic system.
That's a really good point. Think about, all right, am I going to keep spending the money on these home inspection and losing? Well, is it better to pay 4, 8, 12, whatever, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or 17 to 20, get the home inspection?
Yeah, to put a bow on this one, the real estate agent that's quoted in the article says that sometimes the biggest loser in the transaction can be the buyer.
Yeah.
Agent from William Ravis up in Connecticut. All right, let's move on to our third topic. This comes to us from inman.com. Multiple articles about the new National Association of Realtors membership fee that has been increased, and we'll talk about why you should care if you are a consumer, because the fee membership was increased by $10. So you may be thinking, why, as a home buyer or home seller, should I care about a trade organization that has increased a fee like $10? Like who really cares? Like, that's not going to move things too much for me as a consumer. But I think there's a lot more to it, including, possible lawsuits, including possible ways that you as the consumer will compensate real estate agents in the future that we can get into. And essentially, the National Association of Realtors is, a 1.5 million member organization. And there is a $35 special assessment fee for advertising and a $150 membership fee, and the $10 fee is going to increase that $35 fee to $45 for an ad campaign entitled "This Is Who We Are," with the R as a letter. And essentially, the goal of the campaign is visibility for realtors, like the capital R, versus real estate agents. So, Shawn, realtors are real estate agents that are ethically bound by the Realtor Code of Ethics, whereas real estate agents are not bound by the Code of Ethics. And with 1.5 million members at $45 a pop, we're talking like a $67 million bonus into the coffers of the National Association of Realtors. And there's been mixed feedback on it. There's been a lot of comments back and forth on whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. Shawn, some agents just want to disband NAR entirely. Why do we need this trade organization? What do they do for me, right? What is NAR? What have they ever done for me? Some agents want this fee to increase to $1,000, right? Like, increase the membership so only the best of the best, increase the barriers of entry, because as we all know, real estate easiest to get into, possibly hardest to stay into, as the failure rate is in the 90% mark. And there's some other agents that they understand why the fee is there, but why is it going towards advertising dollars? Why isn't it going towards something else, like maybe lawsuits that NAR is in and NAR has put themselves in? So, Shawn, when you saw that NAR is raising the fee and it's going towards an advertising campaign to distinguish between realtors, code of ethics, and real estate agents, two different things, two different people, what are your thoughts?
I don't care about the $10 personally. I don't think that the fees are too large. I don't think about it, right? I'm a realtor, right? I abide by the code of ethics. I think that, go ahead.
If you weren't a realtor, would you have no code of ethics? Would you have no ethics?
I have ethics in my blood, right? So I'm going to abide by it. Did you have
no ethics and then you became a realtor and then all of a sudden you had ethics?
No, you're exactly right.
Okay.
But there are people that don't, right? And so what?
But I don't understand that, because there's realtors, capital R, that don't.
Yeah.
So
you're right on that too.
There's just people in every industry that have terrible ethics, and with the high failure rate, I mean, 80% of real estate transactions are done by 20% of the agents. So the consumers that have run into a bad agent, well, you most likely run into an agent that's not going to be in the business in the next, 5 years.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like the code of ethics, I've never understood pushing like the code of ethics, because it's like, there's thousands of agents in New York City that aren't licensed members of NAR.
Yeah.
Do they just have no ethics? Do people just have no ethics in New York City? I don't think so. I think they do good business up there, and they've survived without NAR just fine. And I'm just curious why this whole code of ethics thing. It's never made sense to me. You have ethics with a capital R, and then you're not an ethical person, with a lowercase r.
Yeah. The thing is, it's like, it's one of these things like, hey, we're just used to it, right? Oh, we just pay the fee. That's part of what we do, right? And you're kind of opening my eyes to this, because I don't really think about it. I don't think about the whole Realtor code of ethics thing, because I just do it, and you're probably right. Do we need that trade organization? One thing that I think maybe we benefit from with this is maybe the fight for certain laws, right? To try to get rid of realtors, to try to get rid of the business, things like that. We have lobbyists that are paid to preach on our behalf, right? To keep us in the business. And I think that might be worth, Matt's laughing right now, that might be worth the dollar.
Those lobbyists are getting paid a lot of money right now because of all the lawsuits that NAR has put themselves into.
That's right. I mean,
with the laws that they've written.
I got to say, my expertise is in selling real estate, not on the back end. So I could see, what's the ad campaign? What is it actually doing? Is it making us as realtors look good to the public? Is that what they're trying to do? Because we have a bad name in some regards. I don't know. Is that going to work? Probably not. I mean, might be a waste of money. I don't know. I mean, first of all, I don't think $10 is gonna break the bank. Secondly, is it annoying that we have to belong to this in order to get through the lock boxes? Yeah, right. It's kind of like, hey, why can't I just put my own combo box up there and whatever, right?
Yeah, it's never about the $10. It's bigger than that.
You're right.
And I remember in 2015, shout out Mark Pina, but I won some award, right? And I think it was like the NVAR, Northern Virginia Association of Realtors, $1 million club, right? You sell 2 houses, you're in the club.
That's right.
I didn't sell many houses in 2015, but so he called me into the office and he's like, "Hey, great news. You've won this award." Oh, that's fantastic. Like, where can I have it? Where is it? He's like, "Oh, you just got to fill this form out." At the bottom of the form, it's like $45. I got to pay for an award. Why do I have to pay for an award? It's like, you think Jokic, MVP of the NBA, is paying
for that?
Maybe
it's so true.
Maybe he's part of the National, Basketball Players Association, but the commissioner is not saying, "Hey, here's your MVP award. By the way, that'll cost you, X number of dollars." I struggle to understand the pay to play, and I think the system as a whole, instead of like advertising to the consumer why they should use a Realtor, which people can't even pronounce, a Realtor, instead of paying to having us pay to tell the consumer what we do, like we should pay them to show us their worth. Because I don't know what they do. It's very cloudy. It's a very muddy picture, and they should devote resources to break it down, to prove why we have to. Like, it's not like an option. It's like we have to be a member.
This is all right. So you just made a light bulb go off in my head. The reality is there's money being made somewhere by somebody, right? And that's why these trade organizations exist. But what they really should be doing is spending that $10 in that multi-million-dollar thing in creating apps for us, creating websites that actually work, that drive traffic, maybe drive traffic to a trade website that has homes on it that we get the lead. Maybe apps that we are not relying on a business that then sells to a company and screws up the whole thing, right? This should be something that NAR and should be providing their members with tools to make our lives easier, to make showings better, showing time, things like this. Where are they? What is, can you name one? I mean,
nope.
That is something that we as a real estate agents should be pushing for. If we're paying you money, I don't care about the advertising campaign. I care about something that is going to make us more valuable compared to the Zillow website or compared to some of these big competitor websites that are taking our information. Let's keep our information and let's build something that is strong and good for our trade organization.
A few quotes that will echo your sentiments. Phil Bland of the Atlas Group. NAR has done nothing to deserve a raise. They appear to be losing the issues in court. They have eliminated the emirate status for all 40-plus year members until they have served on the NAR board of directors, and they have not done anything for general memberships. One more quote from Mina Reed, broker at Kilbrew & Company. NAR is an industry dinosaur that only survives due to their monopoly on MLS access. I, for one, am counting the days until joining NAR is a choice. That day is coming, and they will be a thing of the past. They will lose 90% plus of their members if they had to prove their value.
That's a great point, and I'm glad you said that, because what have they done for us? Can you name anything?
I can't. I think they've done things that have helped the industry, but I said, some of the things haven't helped the consumer. No. It's like we need to protect our realtors at all costs, even if it means like the consumer gets left by the wayside. I think that the multiple lawsuits that NAR is in, mostly dealing with buyer broker commissions, is a big sign of things that the trade organization is trying to do to protect the capital R, the trademarked realtor. But in reality, the market is moving so much faster than NAR that it is destroying the consumer's experience. And ultimately, I think to win in this industry, you need to provide the consumer with the best possible experience, or they're going to find a way to get that best possible experience.
You're absolutely right, and it's happening. So the dinosaurs got to move, and move quickly. It's not by an advertising campaign. Sorry,
that meteor is coming, isn't it?
It's coming.
It's coming.
And just like that person said, there's no value there. Show us. There probably is some value, but not much, right? And so we are made to belong to it. And they're getting their money regardless. And how are they spending that money? Are they spending it in good ways? Honestly, I don't know the budget of NAR. I don't look at it, so I don't really know. But I know that I don't have certain things that I should have, or the tools that I should have on a search basis. Or look at the MRIS website. I mean, we always complain about it, right?
The fact that you're still calling it MRIS just tells me that they've done such a poor job of branding Bright MLS. Can you think of any other website that is just down, that just has downtime? Like, you ever go to Google and it's just like, sorry, search doesn't work today. You ever go to Facebook and it's
tonight we're going to have you can't put any listings on because
it's like, what? You charge me like how much per month? You fine me like with no warning, and then you're just gonna be down for just hours on end. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, I mean, just like everything else we were talking about, this ties back into everything is changing, right? The real estate market has changed. The Realtor kind of thing is going to change. Times change quickly with the pandemic. Everything has changed quickly. People are getting laid off. Industries are changing. So
I wonder if our layoff story is going to have any crossover with this third story.
Yeah. It's a big thing.
People getting laid off, people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
The whole thing is fascinating to me because it's never about the $10, right? It's not about the 10. I don't think people, the people that do care about the $10, all right, it's about what's happening, what's boiling underneath the surface. And Fortunately or unfortunately, Shawn and I have a front row view to everything that's about to transpire in the real estate industry and the Realtor industry as well.
Realtor. Please don't say that anymore.
So
Realtor.
how do you pronounce it?
Realtor.
Realtor.
A realtor.
So it's not Realtor.
I mean, if you want to be like,
no,
stop it. Realtor or Realtor. Don't say it. Just it's a realtor.
Realtor.
Yep.
There we go.
Realtor.
I like it. All right, well, that seems like a good place to stop. Would love to know your comments on this. These are some spicy takes. These are like these are like 4 chilies out of 5. You know, like if this was like a menu,
a restaurant.
Like there's a couple chilies behind some of these topics that we're talking about. Would love to know your comments. Drop them in the comment section below. Hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give us a review on Spotify. All the above. Really appreciate you guys watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.